Yes, hello dears. This is the Ninth Dimensional Pleiadian Collective, and it is a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to connect with you all. So before we begin, we want you to check in. How do you feel in your bodies right now? I want you to take a moment and take a breath. See if you can list 3 adjectives to describe how you feel. Would anyone like to share?
Yes, tingly.
Tingly, all right.
Calm.
Calm.
Relaxed.
Emotional.
Emotional. All right.
Connected.
All right.
Expecting.
All right.
Bright.
Wide.
Bright.
Bright, yes. You all are very bright. It's a bright room right now. So this is what it feels like to be connected, which is where we want to start today. So first, let us say what an amazing pleasure it is for us to be here at this time, because it has been quite a journey for you over the last several years. And since you have moved beyond 2012, you have opened to a new world of possibilities, shall we say, especially because you've moved beyond a lot of your fears surrounding catastrophe and the what-if scenarios, all right, what is going to happen, a lot of the expectations, and you're beyond that now. So what you are able to do is take the theory that we've given you for the last 10 years and start applying that to your personal life, the day-to-day living. And what does that look like? That's why we are here today. That's why we've asked Wendy to speak on this particular topic, because it is so needed at this time. And we're really happy to do it. We're happy to get down to the nitty-gritty, all the small, tiny little details, the nuances, the subtle nuances, because most of what you are going to encounter and work with right now, it's not something that's drastically different from what you're doing. It is starting to notice the subtle differences in frequency and what that feels like in your vehicle. So as we go today, we're going to stop periodically and we're going to ask you to check in and see how you're feeling in your body. Because right now you're all feeling pretty calm. As we start talking about some of these topics and asking you about your fears, you're going to find that you've got tension in the body, or that you've got anxiety in the body, or you may feel elation. But we want you to start examining that. So what is connection exactly? And it's different for each and every one of you in different moments as to how you interpret that. And what you are connecting with is going to feel different from time to time. When you connect, it is essential that you are in your heart center, because it is the operating system for the multidimensional perspective. You decided that you wanted to play this game called 3D. And in order to play that game, you needed to lower your overall frequency. And the paradigm, or the setup of the game, was that you had the opportunity to forget who and what you truly are, which is divine in nature. You are divine source energy that has put itself into a physical body. And we're going to ask Wendy to draw here. So with the visual, we hope that you can really get this. You are a divine being, and you have this beautiful light within you. Then what you do for density is you get to have this illusion of separation. So you kind of create this cocoon, this energetic cocoon for yourself. And this you create through frequency. You create it through thoughts and belief forms that you are separate, that you are lacking somehow, so that you can play in an expression of duality. You can play in an expression of opposites. You get to know fully what connection is like from a 5D realm and on up. And 3D, you get to have the illusion of separation and of linear time. We're going to talk about time here a bit later, because it's a vital piece for you all to understand in order to play properly, shall we say, in the 5D creation. So you're this beautiful, perfect being of light. This is your higher self that is embodied. And then you take all of these beliefs, such as I am not good enough, I'm not lovable, and so on and so forth. And then as you project energy out, which is pure and perfect to start with, it gets colored through these filters, and what gets reflected back to you is the filter. So your beliefs and your experiences with others say, I am not lovable, I am not good enough. Because you operate here under the laws of attraction and reflection. What you pulse out is what you get back. And this is a vital piece for you to understand, because as you are creating, as you're trying to figure out what these frequencies feel like in your vehicle, you have the opportunity to recognize them because of the reflections that are in front of you. The people and even the consciousness, be it a tree or nature, the consciousness that is in front of you is showing you a reflection. You always create in trinity between source, you, and another point in consciousness. And again, that can be another human being, that can be an animal, that can be an element of nature. Absolutely everything from a blade of grass to an ant to a goat to a human holds consciousness. There is nothing that exists, even the rock and the water holds consciousness. There is nothing that does not hold consciousness in this realm. That's important for you all to remember. You tend to think only animals hold consciousness, but also the plants do. And so does the wind. So does the air. So does the water, fire, and so on.
Does man-made things, do they also contain consciousness?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because it is made from the same basic elements. Now, it may not be organized in the same way, so it may not express its consciousness in the same way. You may not feel it in the same way, because it may not pulse large intention the way that, say, an animal does, but it still holds consciousness and resonance. And it is a big issue throughout the galaxy about the value of something that is quote-unquote man-made and what is biological. In many different parts of your galaxy, there have been wars created over biologicals versus artificial intelligence. But what is known to all is that all are part of source energy. It is made from that same divine essence. Absolutely everything is made from the same divine essence and holds a bit of source, a spark of source. Now, when you put a lot of source energy together, you get consciousness, you get awareness. The more organized that is, the more creative that consciousness can be. And you are highly organized. All right? You yourselves have been somewhat genetically modified, all right, so that you can organize yourselves to have higher creative thought. You are part of the grand experiment in which it was a process of descension and reascension. So you decided, let's go down and play this game in which we forget who and what we are. If we know we're creator beings, we know what that particular experience is like. But if we could forget that we were creator beings, how would that change our choices? How would that change our experience? And that's what you decided to do in 3D. It's incredibly unique and incredibly valuable to all of consciousness. It's incredibly valuable to us and all of the other stellar beings that are watching and observing and assisting, as well as the angelics and all of the non-physicals. We all learn from you, because one of the things that you are mastering down here is compassion. And your compassion teaches the rest of us, because on the other side, in 5D, we know that we're creator beings, so that if you don't like something and you're telling your friend that, they say, well, you created it, change it. So there's not a lot of compassion. But here in 3D, you feel like it is real. You know, sometimes that can be a struggle to figure out how you want to do it. So you have compassion for others when they are in pain or suffering or experiencing something of a lower vibrational nature. It is a huge gift and something that the higher dimensional realms have been working on. Even the higher dimensional realms are dimensions of a dualistic expression. So the higher realms have duality, but their extremes are not as far apart as the ones that you experience here in what we will call still 3D. The reason we say still 3D is because you are actually fourth dimensional beings. But in the fourth dimension, you have a very malleable matrix. You can apply different rules to the game at any time. 3D is very fixed in that you have the illusion of separation and disconnection. You have the illusion of time. Time is just a marker for an event. It is not real. Take a breath. We're going to say that again. Time isn't real. You can manipulate it. You can project yourself anywhere in time. And it is a concept that you've got to start absorbing in the body. And this is so important because when you let go of the illusion of time, it's possible for you to step out of it and really manipulate your reality. And that's why we're going to talk about time in just a moment. So, as we were saying, 3D has a very fixed set of rules. 5D has a very fixed set of rules in which you know that you're connected to everyone and everything at all times. You know that you are a multi-dimensional being, and you know that time is an illusion, and it is simply a marker for an event, and you can project yourself anywhere on the timeline that you want to. Because there is such a difference between 3 and 5, you needed an entire dimensional range in order to shift. Alright, in order to understand what it was like to take a dense vehicle, remove all those filters and programming, to increase your frequency so much that you crossed the dimensional barrier and you started playing a new game. You needed a whole dimension to do that. You did that on the way down because this was a game of descension and reascension. So you did it on the way down and you will also do it on the way back up. So right now you're actually in 4D, but you are still running the 3D programs for the most part. We would say right now about 90 to 95% of your programming that you run is still being run at the 3D thought level, and it's applied to a 4D matrix. And this is what gives you the illusion that you are still in 3D. But we're here to tell you you're not. You have already upgraded yourselves. And you are in the process of upgrading your vehicles. You're changing your DNA, your genetic structure. All of that is upgrading to run more light through the body. Light is source energy. So you're upgrading your wiring so that you can run more voltage, if you will, a higher frequency, through the body. Is that a simple way to hear it? Because that's in essence what you're doing. And the way that you upgrade those systems is by dropping those filters. Those programs that say you aren't connected to source energy. But you are. It is absolutely impossible for you not to be connected. Even if you wanted to be, it is impossible. We always have a good laugh because we know how much you humans like your privacy. You're always afraid that somebody else is going to get into your business, know what's going on in your personal life. Well, we're here to tell you there is no separation. What is yours is ours. What is ours is yours. And we are constantly looking at your dirty laundry, shall we say. Now, as you open yourself up, you can also see ours. So is that incentive enough? We don't have quite as much as you have, but we still have it. We still have our disagreements, we have our challenges, but we don't kill, we don't maim, we don't fight in the way that you do. We don't express it in such a heavy, dense way. That's part of density, that's part of 3D existence. That was part of the game. And there is the part of you that is in the center of you, your higher self, that already knows this. But you have to connect to yourself and to source energy in order to access this wisdom and this information. When it gets run through the filter program of the mind, you have a completely different perspective, and you are working and operating from the victim-perpetrator level of mentality. The mind was set up to keep you in density. It was set up to create and run all of these programs to give you the illusion of separation. Without it, you could not experience the illusion. So you needed those programs in place, because what would happen at the very beginning as you began this process of dissension is that you would have an awareness that you were part of source energy, and that would immediately pop you out of the game. All right, and then you'd have to start over. Oh wait, I forgot, I'm not supposed to remember I'm source energy. I'm not supposed to remember I can change my reality. And once these programs started running, you very quickly descended. All right, it was a very quick descent. And it's the same thing as you come back up. The higher you go, the faster you go. Take a breath. And some of you are beginning to feel this accelerated growth because you are also feeling accelerated time. How many of you in the room would say that you are experiencing accelerated time?
Yes.
Yep.
All of you? Because you are. Because frequencies do not move through time and space at the same rate. Higher frequencies move from the illusion of linear time at a higher rate. Lower frequencies move at a slower pace, and this is with intention. Because if you are creating lower, heavier thoughts, most of you aren't really wanting to experience that in physical reality. So if it takes more time to experience it, then you have a greater period.
Sorry.
No worries. You have a greater time period to shift that version of reality for yourself so that you don't have to experience it in a physical way. So in other words, you can increase your frequency. And remember, like attracts like. You create from attraction and reflection. So if you are no longer vibrating at a particular rate, that experience comes back and you're not there to match it, so you don't have that experience. Another way to put it would be that if you had all those negative thoughts, I don't want to be here anymore, I hate it on this planet, if you were holding that thought, you create an exit strategy. You go through the death cycle. You create a scenario to die. But part of you says, no, I really want to be in the game. I'm just getting trapped in the illusion, so you can elevate yourself. So that when that kind of accident would come back, you wouldn't match it. If you didn't experience the lag in time, you'd be going through the death cycle constantly. And so you'd have to keep starting over, and you wouldn't get anywhere with the progression of the game. So this is in part why the construct allows for lower frequencies to move at slower rates. Now, as far as time goes. Now, what you will find is that time is going to continue to accelerate until you reach such a point that you are going to have to step out of it. That you are going to feel so harried and so rushed that you just can't take it anymore. And you will say, I know I can work with time. And so you will. You will start grounding and centering and connecting yourself, and you'll start manipulating reality. You'll start stepping out, and you can expand it or contract it. If you're in a situation that feels like an eternity, if you're sitting in a meeting and you think, I really don't want to be here, I'm not interested, they're just droning on and on and on, we hope that's not today, that you can compress time, all right, so that what is 8 hours feels like it's 30 minutes. And the same thing goes the other way. What most of you will experience automatically is that things that are enjoyable, you'll have a couple hours go by and it will seem like 10 minutes. All right, it will go very, very quickly because you're in the flow of things. But you can also expand it, and you will learn to check in with yourself and really focus. The more you focus and harness your energy and pinpoint it, that's when you expand it. That's when you're able to make something that is enjoyable and precious to you seem like it's hours and hours and hours and only a few seconds have gone by. That is created through focused, harnessed energy. We'll talk about that here in a bit as well as we talk about divine connection. Any questions thus far?
Yes, I was wondering, when I do something enjoyable, For me, it lasts half an hour, but in reality, it lasts at least what we observe in reality. It's let's say 2 hours. So it's actually the opposite.
It can be. That's what we were saying. So something that you may have had 3 hours pass would be very, very quick. But you can start to play with that. The more focused you become, the more you are present and in connection with the event, the more you can expand it. You will notice more and more details, and that will give you more of an illusion of expanded time. So it can go either way for you right now, but it's just about checking in with yourself when you have those moments and asking yourself, where am I with my expansion in time? Right now, most of you, unless you are consciously directing the energy, will feel it at an accelerated rate. You'll be having conversations with friends, or you'll be doing an activity that you're really loving, and as we said, several hours will go by, but you'll feel like it just started. That's because you're simply opening your energy right now. Once your energy is opened, and you're running full energy and are able to focus and harness it and direct it on a now moment, and you are wholly physically present, then you can really open and expand it. All right? We'll give you some drawings here when we talk about time in a bit. And hopefully that will help to give you the visual, what we're talking about. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
You're
You have
welcome.
to reset time after the dull meeting? Or
Would you like to? It happens automatically because you realign with yourself. You realign with yourself. The reason time feels like it moves slower is because your energy is diffused, because you're not on that now moment. You are putting your energy usually on the present, or not on the present, but on the future or the past. And that diffuses your energy, that lowers your frequency, and then that's what also makes it feel like it goes by very, very slowly, because you're not fully engaged. The more engaged you are, that's when it starts to rush until you can fully open up all of your energy, and at that point you can start to manipulate time and expand it again. It's a bit like, we'll draw it in a bit. All right.
Can it also help to get more things done in less time?
Most definitely. Most definitely. And when you're in the flow of energy, things align so it takes less time. You don't have to start hunting around and trying two or three different methods in order to achieve something. And that comes from connection. The more connected you are, the more you can allow yourself to experience things in divine flow. And we're going to talk about the use of both the divine masculine and the divine feminine energy in creation, because that's important for you to know about connecting with the divine energy. But this is another key piece, understanding that you're creating with both of these energies. And by working in divine flow, yes, you can create much more in an accelerated time frame. Much, much more. And it's much easier.
so you say you have to focus on one thing, but how about bilocation and multitasking and getting more stuff done at once by doing more stuff at once?
You can, it's a choice. Remember, you're in the 4D realm, so it's entirely up to you how you want to work and how you want to create. You can create from a 3D standpoint, which allows for one point of focus. That was part of the paradigm, part of the setup. You said, I don't want to know about all these other probable realities. What would it be like if I only knew one thing and I didn't have other options? How would that change my choice in the moment? I couldn't see ahead. I couldn't preview what was coming. I had to be really present. How does that change the reality? That's the setup for 3D. So most of you are still operating that way, but you can work in the 5D way, which allows you to bilocate, to do multiple things at once. It's a choice. It doesn't mean you have to operate that way, but you can. You may have glimpses of it in the moment. We would say that most of you simply aren't there. You're not ready, because once you start to experience that, there's no going back. You can't put that genie back in the bottle, so to speak. You can't unknow it. And if you're not done playing in the 3D realm, it's not going to really serve you, so you're not going to access it. We will say this to you: do not be in a rush to get there, to that multidimensional perspective, because that higher part of you that resides within you already knows exactly what that's like. The part of you that is uncomfortable and says, I want to be there and not here, is the piece that you need to deal with. That's the ego programming, and that's what you came for, to process through that, to integrate that. Integration is simply releasing judgment. You let go your attachment to it as being either positive or negative, and know that it's simply a vibrational signature that you are experiencing. When you integrate, it becomes part of you. It once again resonates at source level, because source doesn't have polarity to it. Source is unified energy. So literally, that part then becomes unified as source energy. You are source energy. You're a neutral charge. You're not a polarity. Part of the game is, as the universe was created, as you fractured from source, was to give polarity to the dimensional structure, and then once you entered into a dimension, you played around in that polarity. But you, that core part of you, is a neutral charge. Take a breath.
Where comes pain and illness in? You know, what would it mean in this? Helping you get to the ego part, or?
Well, all of your physical ailments are a result of lower vibrational energy in the energetic field. We're going to lump together the mental, emotional, causal, all of the bodies. We're going to lump all of that together for you, because frankly there are other levels and layers to it that you're not even aware of. So we'll just say your energetic field, your thoughts, feelings, and emotions create the lower thought forms, the lower charges in the field. And your body is a reflection of that. The energetic template creates the physical body. So if you've got an ailment, it's because you're holding a lower vibrational charge in the body. You are holding one of these filters, and it shows up here, or your finger. Alright, maybe you bumped your head, it shows up here. So as you shift the energetic field, and you no longer have the issue, it goes away in the physical body. You cannot change it the other way around. You cannot change the physical body and hope that it changes the energetic field. It doesn't work that way. That's not how your body is created. You have to change the energetic template in order to change the physical body. If you don't, the issue will come back. It may not be in the exact place. It may show up someplace else, but it will come back.
Is it what we call this time a trauma that causes the energetic field to be?
Well, it's a lower belief. The trauma and drama happen when you're not paying attention. You create something very intense to see that you have one of these programs running. You don't have to create it at such a deep level. You can create it, and you do create it, at the very subtle level, but most of you don't get the signals, or you don't have the awareness that you are running those lower beliefs. And so each time it gets pulsed out, you're not paying attention, so it gets bigger and bigger and louder until you create trauma or drama. And at that point you can't miss it. Usually create an accident or something rather dramatic. A huge argument. A traumatic event for yourselves. Now, when you come into your vehicle, when you incarnate, you set up some of these programs. They may be very faint in your field, and you choose your family to reactivate and reinitialize these programs. Your family helps you set you up with all of your dysfunctional beliefs. That's why you choose them. As a parent, you don't like to hear that, you don't like to think about that, but as a child it's easier to see, oh yes, my mother and father have these issues, and I've picked up these issues and these habits because of my parents. That's where it starts. And then you pull in friends and co-workers and lovers who match those resonances in your field, so that you can see that you are running these lower belief systems. Alright, so does that answer your question?
Yes, so if you change those beliefs, the environment changes, you get other people around you? With a higher vibration?
Yes, as you change these programs, you will change what you draw to you, and that includes people. If you're in relationships with people and they are not willing or wanting to increase the frequency, you will find that those people start to leave your life. And new people show up who are a vibrational match. What you pulse out, you get back. So everything, absolutely everything in your life, not one minute detail is missed. You create absolutely 100% of every experience without exception. How willing are you in this moment to accept and take full responsibility for absolutely everything? Whether your car doesn't start, or whether somebody cuts you off on the road, or whether the person next to you keeps sneezing and they won't stop, or somebody's talking on their cell phone and you're finding it really irritating to hear. Absolutely all of that is orchestrated by you because of your frequency. How willing in this moment are you to take 100% responsibility? And be honest, because we would say, in theory, in the mind, most of you will say, oh sure, 100%, I'm in. Energetically, when you feel into your body, and we want you to feel right now, how much of that do you really want to take responsibility for? And we will tell you, not a one of you is 100% in the energetic body. Find your number. And the reason you don't want to take responsibility is because of pain and trauma, and that's because you're processing some of that information through the mind, through the filtering program of 3D. You haven't elevated it yet through the heart chakra, which is the operating system for 5D and up. When you start operating through the heart, you bypass all of those 3D filter programs, the ego programs. They don't exist in the heart center. And when you go to the heart center and you ask a question regarding some of the 3D issues, you don't see them as obstacles. And oftentimes the questions simply go away because you know that they're a non-issue. You can't remember all the questions in part. That often happens to you all. What did I want to ask? I forgot. Because it's a non-issue. The only place it's an issue is in the head. Make sense? Where were your numbers? And don't be shy. Don't feel bad. If you're at a 45, that's all right. You're honest. And honesty is really important, that you're honest with yourself. And you don't berate yourself. Because today, in this moment, you're feeling at about a 45. And in a couple hours, you may feel you're about 75. It can change very, very quickly. But it's important for you to be honest about where you are. And it doesn't matter where you are on the scale. You all are so conditioned to grade yourselves and that you think that it's a competition. It's not. You're already a part of you on the other side, and knowing what it is like to be 5D, the piece that you don't know and the piece that you came for was to know how to go from 3 to 5. That's the benefit. That is the piece that you are working with, and that is what you are teaching the rest of us. So don't be in a rush to get to the 5D place. Just be present and know that there is part of you that is already there, and you are working with realigning yourself with that version. That's it. This is the good stuff. The part where you get to learn what to integrate and how to do it. This is really what you came for. Do you all get that?
Talking about what to integrate, so those programs you were talking about, does it make sense to go to the past and ponder your thoughts you had or the deeds you did in the past in order to get to know those programs?
Well, there are two ways that you can operate, and it depends on the issue and it depends on the moment. All right, because it may be an issue that you have worked with for quite a while. But, you know, in the past, you may have felt that you wanted to work with it in one way, and you may feel, that's not going to be effective, I need to work with it in another way. What we're talking about is working from a 3D perspective or working from a 5D perspective. So we'll give you an example. We want you to imagine something that you would like to create for yourself. It can be something really simple or it can be something elaborate. It doesn't matter. Can you imagine that thing? Now we want you to see and feel yourself pulsing that frequency out to the universe, and that energy coming right back to you. And that thing that you wanted is created and generated, and you experience it. Most of you will have a visual image, not all. Some of you will just have a knowingness or feeling. And that goes out and you see it boomeranging through time and coming back to you. So time is involved. Take note of how that feels in your body. Now, we would like for you to imagine that same thing and creating it. Feel the frequency of what it is you want to create. And align with that frequency on another point in time in which you are going to experience it. You are aligned with the creation. How does that feel in your body? Which was easier for you to do? The first or the second?
First.
And for others? Yes. It depends on the issue and what you want to create. Some things will be much easier to vibrationally align with. Some things it will seem more practical for you to go back and work with time, the illusion of time. So when you ask us about examining an issue, you can work that way. Oftentimes you won't integrate or release an issue until you have it consciously brought to the surface, so you know how and why it has served you. Whenever you create an issue, and it happens to be a lower vibrational issue, you like to play victim with it, or sometimes you're the perpetrator. Why did I do that? How did it serve me? What do I learn about myself? Oh, usually it is what you are learning is how you are suppressing your divine nature. Oh, I really have more power and I can run more of it. I have to remind myself I can run more power. Perhaps you created an argument, and in that argument you felt that your needs weren't being met by your friend. You were expecting and projecting that expectation onto your friend. And what you were learning, if you look at that scenario, you would say, oh, I'm not giving it to myself. I need to nurture and give to myself. And in that moment, you will have an awareness of how it serves you. You move out of victim perpetrator of the mind and move into the heart center where you're connected. And you know that you are playing this drama out. You've co-created it with your friends so that you can see both of you usually have the same program running. I need to nurture myself more. All right? And you are playing it from one extreme and your friend from the other. And when you see how you've created it and why, what you gain from it, you immediately lose the charge. So if you've been upset and angry with your friend about that, that immediately goes away. Because you see it from the co-creator level, no longer from the victim perpetrator. Anytime you experience pain or discomfort, fatigue, depression, it's because you are perceiving something from the victim perpetrator mentality. So you can, yes, go back and examine something if you wish, or simply focus on the new frequency. What do you want to experience? Some things will feel really heavy to go back and dive through again and again and again. All you have to do is align. So if it is about nurturing, you don't necessarily have to go back and go through all of that, how is it serving me, but simply say, I wish to nurture myself. I wish to feel more energized. And you can work on it that way. Either way will work. It will get you there. It's just a matter of what method do you want to apply to your life. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
It doesn't really matter. There's no right or wrong here. There's no right or wrong here. So we want to talk about time. Time as it is perceived from the 3D level is linear. You imagine yourself in having an experience. and stringing them together and experiencing a past, a present, and a future. That's your time. Every now moment, can everybody see? Every now moment is built upon an agreed upon set of circumstances. All right, this is your now moment. These are your agreed upon set of circumstances at the collective level, and then you have a set of personal history, of personal circumstances. Your collective history is something that you agree on this now moment happened for your collective. So it can be a world war, it can be a celebration, perhaps you just had a parade in your town, all right, and collectively you're all agreeing to the experience. Personally, it can be, when I was 12, I fell and broke my leg. When I was 7, I got a new dog. It can be anything. You had your first love and heartbreak, and it still didn't feel good, and you have a lot of anger. So what happens in reality is that time as you experience is more of a sphere. And there are infinite now moments all over the surface of the sphere. And each now moment is built upon an agreed upon set of circumstances. You can perceive yourself as standing in the center of the sphere. And you are projecting and connecting with infinite now moments. In 3D reality, you connect with one at a time. And you experience one at a time. That was the benefit of being in 3D. As a multidimensional being, you have the option and the potential to project yourself onto multiple timelines. Now, why would one want to do this? You may want to experience several things at once. It's very natural. It is how we all, 5D up, experience reality. It is very unique for you to focus on one at a time. Absolutely unique. And that's why you all love coming to 3D. Does it feel like fun? Not always, we know. All right. So, most of the time, what you experience in your reality is pretty similar from now moment to now moment. What you do is you chain these together. You can go from here to here to here. You can skip around. And from your linear perspective, as it's processed through the mind, it looks like a timeline. But you really can go anywhere. What you choose normally is a small jump. This circumstance is rather similar to the one over here. So you don't really realize that you've shifted quote-unquote timelines. You move from now moment to now moment. You could go to here, all the way over here, if you wanted. But the circumstance over here is vastly different. The vibration is very different. So perhaps on the one on the other side of the sphere, you didn't experience World War II. What will happen if you go from the reality where you did have World War II to the one where you didn't, is that you will have that awareness in your consciousness, and it will pull you out of the illusion of the game for 3D. So most of your jumps are from version of reality to version of reality where this difference is rather subtle. To make that big jump will ruin the illusion of the game, and there's no point in doing that. But it is entirely possible. When you start to work more with energy and manipulating reality, you can start to go venture forth and find out what another frequency feels like. Now, we're not talking about out-of-body experiences here. We are talking about in-body experiences. We are talking about bilocation, not astral projection. What's the difference? When you bilocate, you literally are creating a new vehicle for yourself. You are remanifesting a body because you are focusing your energy. Now, any questions about this piece?
Yes. The other people in the world, they might not be conscious in the fifth dimension.
Yes.
So what would that look like? That a few people is conscious and a lot isn't?
Well, here's the thing. They may not be awake, but if you are interacting with them, there is something for you to receive or to share. And many of you will look at the vibrational state of the planet and you'll get very frustrated because you will think you are suffering because the rest of the planet is not waking up, and you get very frustrated. Sound familiar? Mm-hmm. You're not a victim. You have consciously, this higher self part of you has consciously decided to put itself on this version where 90% of the population is asleep. You're choosing that. Otherwise, you'd be on another version of the now moment. Period. So you're not a victim. And the reason you are doing that is because it is of service to you and to others. Because there is something that you will gain through the vibrational experience, and that you will also be of service and give. It may be that you are holding light as you are figuring out how to increase your frequency. As you pass people on the street without even opening your mouth, you are sharing that frequency, that energy with them. You don't have to say anything. You are putting the energy into the collective matrix so that others can access the record of how to do it in a very practical way on the planet. If you're experiencing reality, even if you're vibrating at 5D, if you're coming across those in a lower resonance, there is a reason why you are coming across them. To hold that vibrational ceiling up, you don't have to drop down to the 3D level. In fact, we would encourage you not to, and to hold your frequency and require those at the 3D level to come up if they want to engage with you, interact with you. That's why we tell you, if you are interacting with them, there is some reason, there is something either to give or receive, and usually it's both. And if you are one who is vibrating at the 3D level, unless you've raised your level of consciousness in that moment, you're not going to encounter or see someone who is operating at a 5D level. Period. You can't see up. You're not, most of you, seeing us unless you raise your consciousness or your awareness. And at that moment, then you can see us. Most of you will see us as blue light. Take a breath.
But you can see downwards.
Yes?
So that's also what's pulling you down, more or less, if you're not conscious that
well, it's not
you don't have to communicate with those.
Well, there's no pulling down. This is about you maintaining your frequency, and you simply see down and can engage. If you are engaging, there is some attraction in the frequency that you're carrying in your field still. Even in 5D. Even in 9D. We don't necessarily drop our frequency, although we manipulate it a bit in order to connect with Wendy. All right, we lessen our bandwidth, because to run our full 9D energy through her would be too challenging. So we do modify it, our transmission, the bandwidth, a bit. Think of it as how you speak with a child. You simplify the language. And that's somewhat what we're doing. We're modifying the light. We're simplifying the bandwidth of light that we share. Light is information. It is how we all communicate, through the language of light. And so it will be that as you interact with those who are still operating in the illusion of 3D, because none of you are 3D beings, you're not dense in that same way, you are 4D, you're just playing with different matrices right now. None of you are going into the 5D realm and staying there. Right now, none of those who are speaking with us or listening to us are operating at a constant rate of 5D. Not a single one of you. Because your reality would be vastly, vastly, vastly different. Because it's a brand new game at that point. But right now, what you will do is hold a 5D level of consciousness, work to upgrade the cellular structure so that you can run more energy through it, so that eventually you will be able to maintain that level of awareness and shift into that consciousness. You won't go back to density. Some of you may play for a bit in between to help be a bridge, to explain to others how to do it, to be the living example of it. But when you're ready, you will go and stay. And you probably won't interact with too many who still are working with the 3D realm, because it's at that point you're interested in playing another game and having a different vibrational experience. It is possible, but for most of you, rather unlikely. And many of you are waiting until the collective energy is high enough to make that collective leap. So you will be the bridge and play around in that new 4D matrice, that 4D physical reality with the 5D consciousness. You'll play there and then move forward so that you all have a 5D vehicle with a 5D consciousness. Does that make sense to you all? All right. So we want to talk about bringing in energy and what that looks like. When you are in fear, you bring energy in through the celestial realm. You're limited. You can think of it as bandwidth. It's not very wide. All right? You can even bring it up through the earth, but if you're in fear, again, that bandwidth is not going to be very wide. When you are open and heart-centered, fully open, we used to tell you it was about 6 feet wide. Right now, because you're running more energy, more bandwidth, it's about 10 feet wide. It's a lot more energy and information that you can bring through. See how that works? So when you hold limiting thoughts, you cut yourself off from divine source energy. The reason you eat food is to absorb consciousness and light. Whether it comes from plants or animals, that's what you're doing. And you're breaking it down in the body. Because you have forgotten how to keep that field open and access infinite amounts of energy through that expanded bandwidth. Make sense? This is why you sleep. Because the body needs to repair itself. And you're out doing other things. Every night, out of your body, working with your celestial friends. You're giving updates. You're explaining to other beings what it's like to be on planet Earth and what's going on. On planet Earth, they don't always understand why you make the decisions that you make because they don't understand the emotional component of it. Remember what we said, 5D and up, not a lot of compassion. Well, why would you choose that? Well, in that moment I was feeling this tremendous amount of fear and doubt about my self-worth, and so I couldn't make that leap. It felt overwhelming. It felt too challenging. And they say, oh, that's what that feels like. Because in the higher realms, we have an equivalent to an emotion. Emotions have a particular range, a particular frequency. Each dimension is a range. We break it up into 12 dimensions. You will hear others who will use other numbers. It has to do with where they're making their break. Within each dimension there are octaves. Just like you have on a piano, you've got 12 octaves in each dimension. Thus you get 144 from our perspective if you want to break it out. But we put those in as octaves, and we determine, or we give you the information that it is a dimensional range. So there is an equivalent. Your emotions are one particular range. From here to here you've got emotions. Now you've got something similar, all right, and the harmonics continue up. You've got something that is similar in the 4D range. It is not the same. It would be like playing a B on the piano in one octave and a B in another. They sound similar, but they're not identical, and the experience of it is different. So when you go out of your body at night and you explain to your friends that you had an emotion, they don't have a physical body, so they're not going to interpret the frequency in the same way, so you have to explain it to them. And they actually are able to access your records. Remember, we were talking about privacy before. You don't have it. There's no separation. But the way that we experience records is different because we're not experiencing it through the same set of filters. So we get an idea of what that is like. It's a bit like watching a film or somebody telling a story. You can understand it, but it's different when it happens to you. It's a different experience. So you are there to guide them through the experience, and you kind of give examples, just as we're doing, that explain it a bit to them, what it's like. So you're all very busy, and at night you leave your body and you do this work, and you allow the source energy, because you're not running any filters while you're sleeping, all this giant energy to come through the body, or the vehicle. Now when you enter into density, what you're doing, this is source up here, You are part of source energy, and you are focusing and harnessing your energy directly into one vehicle, one now moment, one point. It is a very focused beam of light. And this is, as we said, the now. This is all that exists. And you move from that point to point to point on the circle. Anytime you are thinking about the past or the future, what you are doing is siphoning energy off to a different now moment that your consciousness is not on. What you find is that it's exhausting, because you are not allowing the full bandwidth of energy to come down. Part of it's going off over here because you're thinking about yesterday when you had an argument with your friend, or something you should have done, or you're thinking about the future. You're worried because you're not sure how you're going to get everything done. It siphons off your energy. It is so important, we cannot express this enough, that you stay engaged with the now. Be present now. If you are grounded and connected to your body, then you are able to run this full charge, this full energy, and you are able to take stock of what you are engaged with. You're able to identify the frequency and decide if you want to continue running that frequency, or you want to shift your vibration and go to another now moment where you have a different vibrational experience. It's a choice. Absolutely everything that you feel, every emotion, every thought you have, it is a choice. If you are feeling something, you can choose to feel something else. Most of the time you have a feeling because of habit. Because you've had a similar experience and you say, oh, this is going to hurt and this is what it's going to feel like, and so that's where you go. Alright? So it is really, really, really important that you are in this now moment, not another now moment. And this we will say you describe as your past, and this is your future. Anytime that you are doing this, that you are not in the now, you're in the past or the future, you're operating out of the head. In order to be in the now moment, you have to operate out of the heart.
Can I ask a very practical question?
Yes?
Take an example of a mortgage.
All right?
And you really wish it would go away.
All right?
If I stay in the now moment all the time, I just wish it will go away. But there is another part of my mind which will say, well, Evelyn, that's not very practical. It's there. It's the three worlds, the 3D world. So how do I handle that?
Why do you want it to go away? What does it represent to you?
It represents a lot of hard work to get it all together.
All right. What else?
Otherwise I have to move from the place.
All right. First, all right. We would say it is a fear. Anytime that you have an attraction or repulsion to something, you are charged to it. If you want to push that mortgage away, that is the same as being drawn to it. Because you are going to charge that polarity and you will create it. So if you're resisting it because you feel that it is hard, it's going to require more money, you have a limited amount of energy, it's going to drain you, it's fear-based. Because there is an infinite amount of energy, and if you were really in alignment, it would be paid off immediately. You would allow enough source energy to come in that you could create and generate money, and it would be done with. Okay. It doesn't have to be hard. You can even continue the 3D mindset where you say, all right, well, I can create enough just to keep paying it. It's not that I have to pay it all off at once. You can do it that way, but that can be easy. And it can be something that you can enjoy doing. You can appreciate what that mortgage has allowed you to have. And that's where we would suggest that you start. Appreciation for what it has granted you, energetically, vibrationally. When you approach it that way, you're not charged to it in a negative way. You're not trying to push it away, because when you want to push it away and get rid of it, you get more of it. And so if you're talking about something that is debt, you're going to get more debt. Appreciate it, and that will allow you to align with a new potential. So if you want to create something else, or you want to complete that mortgage, all right, you want to honor what you agreed to, then you can do that in an easy and effortless way. But the worry about it and the wishing it away is a charge. All right, so you have to look at it as such and see how it served you, what it provided for you. And then have appreciation and say, I just like to honor myself. I'd like to honor what I said I would do. It's a very different underlying vibration. Can you feel the difference?
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
Yes.
All right.
I have a practical question too.
Yes?
If you take the theory of the now, which has everything in it, to its ultimate thing, the past and the future are in the now, aren't they?
In a sense, but we're breaking it out for you because you're operating from 3D standpoint. So for most of you, immediately you just sigh and say, I give up. All right? We're breaking it down so the mind can understand it. Yes, these are all concurrent because time doesn't exist. Infinite potentials exist.
But also if you have issues that you're dealing with now, sometimes they relate to something in the past.
Correct.
You have to face the past also.
No.
And you do it in the now?
No,
or?
you do it in the now. Because you're not on this timeline. Not really. Your consciousness, your focus, the majority of your soul's energy and light has been infused into this now moment to create the vehicle, to create your conscious awareness. And in 3D, you only had the awareness that you were on one of these now moments, and your consciousness is on this one. In 5D, you can have the awareness that, yes, you're over here in the past and in the future and in the now all at the same time. But where you're standing right now, no. For all intents and purposes, you are right here on this now. This is the most important piece. So this brings us to the next thing we wanted to talk about, which was holography. Do you all know what this word means?
No.
All right. So we'll say holographic universe is what you live in. What it means is that any piece, so let's just take this as your universe. Any piece contains an image, and so does the whole. When you change any part of the whole, all of the smaller pieces get the change. And vice versa. That's holography. That's how you operate. So all of the whole is contained in each of the pieces. So you can break off a piece and it will still contain, so let's say we took this corner and it's way over here, it will now contain all of the pieces and all of the changes that still occur over here. And that's what's happening to you, and that's what's happening to your body. When we talk about working with the now moment, anytime you have an issue, even if you access a past life record or a future life record, we tend to refer to them simply all as past lives for you all because it becomes too confusing for the mind. But some of them may be future lives that you access. Anytime that you deal with an issue in the now, let's say you have an issue about persecution. And in a past life, you were burned at the stake. This life, when you were 6 years old, you were taunted and teased horribly. And that reactivated that program, that frequency. Because the past life you're not in, you can't deal with it there because the majority of your energy is here in the now. So you deal with it in the now. Let's say when you were 6 years old you created it. And then when you were 30 years old you recreated it because you had a different belief system. And people said you're a freak. You think that aliens exist. So you're feeling persecuted. They tease you and taunt you for it. Same issue. When this starts to vibrate through the laws of resonance, that same frequency will vibrate every place that exists in your field. So it's a bit like having a room full of tuning forks. What will happen when you strike, say, the note of C, any of the other Tuning forks that are attuned to C will start to vibrate. So the sound will get louder in the room. Same thing in your field. It will feel more intense. You will hear it more in your body because you have activated this past life. You've struck the chord, so to speak, the vibrational chord, and it's amplified from all the other scenarios and situations in your life where you've created that. The only place, again, that you can deal with that issue is from the now moment. So, deal with it now, and as you absolve it here, where you've created it, it automatically eliminates it there. You're working holographically. This information is sent off to the version of you that is in the past. You send it to that version of you and say, all right, here's the how-to. I was able to integrate here from this life, and now this version of you has the decision to make. And it's all happening, for the most part, at the subconscious level. That version of you now has a choice to make in whether to run that program, to open it and run it, to say, all right, I can let go of the persecution now. Or that version of you may say, no, that's going to interfere with the version of the game I wanted to play right now, so I'm just going to download it and save it in my energetic field, and if I want to access it later, I can. Same thing that you do with your computers. If somebody sends you an attachment, you can open it and run it, or you can simply save it. It is your choice. Same thing happens all the time. When your past lives, your future lives get information, they send it to you. Same thing with your genetic line, your ancestral line. So as you start to deal with your issues, you send it off to your genetic line. And they do the same for you. So your great-grandmother, as you were learning to integrate persecution, you send the information off to her, and she then can integrate the information if she wants to. She can run that program and work on integrating persecution for herself, or she can simply choose to save the program, and it's there if she wants it. Everyone breathe. Whenever we start talking about time, you have a tendency to leave your bodies because you're trying to figure it out with the mind, and it won't work. Remember what we told you, the mind was designed to throw out all that extraneous data. What we would suggest you do is to imagine that piece of information as an orb of light and move it down from the head and into the heart. Into the heart, all of this makes sense because it is your natural state of being. It is the way that you all operate. To work and operate through the mind is very unusual. It is very atypical, and frankly, it's hard to do. It takes a lot of focus and a lot of energy to work and operate through the mind. It is much, much easier to operate through the heart center because there is no resistance, there's no drag. So if you want to play in this realm, it takes a tremendous amount of energy and focus to hold thoughts and fear. We're going to say that again. It takes a huge amount of energy to hold fear. This is why you all get tired, and this is why you have to sleep. You're masterful by being down here and being able to hold fear and maintain it. Are you feeling like a master? And we really want you to start perceiving it that way. That it's a lot of energy that you're putting into that. If you simply let go and relax, that's the easier tactic. It's the easier state and way to be. It takes a lot less energy. You actually have more energy because you aren't squeezing that bandwidth shut. And just remind yourself that that's your natural state of being. What you perceive to be your reality is the illusion. And what you think is the illusion is actually the reality of it. Meaning that you are really a divine being, and that's hard for you all to kind of grasp in your mind. And that's what we want to talk about next, is fear. Fear of connection. And what that represents to you. And we think we've got a little bit of time to do that. Any questions before we go on to that?
One about realities. You always talk 3, 4, 5. What's about 1 and 2?
They're not as organized in the structure, and we would say 1 and 2 are contained within 3. So more elements, more elemental, more practical, more basic building blocks.
The octaves that you drew, are they very literal, or is it just an image to help us?
Well, it literally is a range of frequency.
Well, I mean, the octave, is it really the double? Each time you say the emotions are in one octave, or is that just a figure of speech? Are they literally into, they start at number, say 300 and they finish at 600?
It's different for different dimensions because of the setup of the game. So it's not always a one-to-one correlation. So a particular amount of bandwidth is assigned to an emotional equivalent. Some dimensions you may not have a lot of emotion or anything that you need, so that equivalent is smaller. It's not as wide, the width, the bandwidth isn't nearly as wide because it's not required for the dimensional experience. Simply put, as you go up higher in octaves, what would be the equivalent of emotions and emotional ranges is much, much smaller because it's just not utilized. It's just not utilized.
Just say, as an analogy, that in 3D the colors are all in one octave range, actually, that the sound will have many octaves available?
In the higher realms, we don't break it out the same way because you are literally taking frequency and processing it through different senses. In the higher realms, they're all one. It's just frequency. It's just a range of frequency, and we experience it as light. We don't necessarily say, oh, this is what we see, this is what we hear, this is what we smell, this is what we taste, this is, we don't do that. We don't operate that way. And it depends on the species and what physical traits they have. Imagine a sense that's different from any of the ones that have been mentioned. We can't even give it a word because it would seem so foreign to your concept. Because you are so ingrained in this idea of reality. The closest thing we could maybe give to you an example would be telepathy, which incorporates thought and hearing. All right? But that's not really even a stretch. But there are species that have different senses than what you have. Breathe. But you're so ingrained in what you think and believe. It is so concrete to you as your version of reality, isn't it? What would it be like to know that there was a third gender? A third polarity? Which this universe is bipolar, there are some that are tripolar and more. But you are so ingrained in duality that to invite a third polarity in seems strange, it seems bizarre, it seems hard to quantify, to qualify, because you're so ingrained in the game. But it exists.
But here also, no?
Again, dear?
On Earth also? Doesn't it? It's beginning to show?
Not really.
Okay.
Not so much, not in the way that we're talking about it. You've got positive and negative, but what if we had one that we simply called delta?
Well, I'm
because
talking more about gender.
No.
You see a third gender?
No.
No?
You don't really. You've got something that's more androgynous, but that's the combination of the two, but you don't really have a polarity. You don't really have a polarity. You've got more of the combining of the two. All right? Anything else before we move forward? So we invite you right now to take out pen and paper. So before we give you the exercise, we want you to take note of how you feel in your body right now. And we want you to write down several adjectives that describe the feeling. How do you feel at the physical level? How do you feel at the emotional level? And how do you feel at the mental level? What's going on in the body? Is there tingling? Is there heaviness? Is there lightness? Is there pain or discomfort? Emotionally, where are you at? Do you feel uplifted? Do you feel excitement? Do you feel fear? Do you feel joy? Do you feel bliss? Do you feel confusion? And mentally, what's going on? What's the inner critic doing? Is the inner critic full of thoughts? I'm not really getting all of this. What are they talking about? This is interesting stuff. What's going on at the mental level? So who would like to share a few things? How are you feeling in your bodies? What's going on at the emotional, physical and mental levels? You can just throw it out. You don't have to do long explanations.
Well, at the physical level, I'm feeling a bit heavy now.
All right.
Quite restful. A little pain in my back now. At the emotional level, I feel happy, feel joyful. And the mental level, a bit of fatigue, but also clearness. I mean, I'm sensing quite some clearness in how to perceive it.
Great, thank you for sharing. Anyone else? All right.
Do you want another one?
Just if you'd like to share, yes.
It's all right. Physical, big pain in my shoulders and neck. I also feel that my field is all of a sudden becoming a bit more dense, less white. And emotional, there's a bit of confusion, a bit shaking. Mental, it's more, I feel it's trying to understand, to contain it all, to integrate it all. So.
All right. So you get the idea. It's a bit all over the place there. You know, you may feel peaceful and calm, but another piece of you may feel a bit off. So what's really happening is that you are out of alignment. So if you think about all of your energetic bodies lining up, one of them may be a bit off. You can think of it that way. What you want to do is get all of those into alignment, and we're going to show you how to do that. We want you to think of something that makes you smile. Simple as that. We want you to take a moment, take a nice breath. We often recommend animals, and especially small animals, because there is genetic coding in you that the proportions of those animals you are encoded to love and appreciate unconditionally. It's how you take care of your young, and it's encoded in the proportions of the body and the face. That's why you all see a small puppy or kitten or baby and say, "Aww." All right, it naturally elicits that in you. So it's built into your technology, and we would say use it. Make it easy. Continue to breathe. And just feel it. Have that image. Some of you may not be able to have the actual visual, but you get a sense of it, and just go with the feeling of it. Now take note of how you feel in the body. Where's the mind? Where's the emotional state? Feeling a little different? Was that difficult? No, not at all. Because that's your natural state of being. That's the easy part. Took a lot more effort and work to put yourself out of alignment. So what we encourage you to do is to check in throughout the day. We were saying at the beginning of the year to do it at least 2 or 3 times. You need to start doing it more than that. And this can help you tremendously. We cannot understate how potent this can be, something that is so very, very simple to do. It is important for you to do the first part, to check in that moment where you are, because that's what helps you to identify frequency. And the identification of frequency happens when you are practicing it. You get better and better at it when you start looking at it more and more. You say, "Oh, I recognize this one again." This is what contentment feels like. Contentment feels different than happiness. But at the beginning you may not be able to feel the difference or give a different label to it. It has a slightly different color, shall we say. It has a slightly different frequency to it. It has a different tone, a different resonance. And you're not going to really be able to recognize that at the beginning, but the more you practice, the more you tune in, the better able you are going to be at identifying what those frequencies are. And all you have to do is realign yourself. You don't really have to go in and root around to find out what that stuff is. You can if you want, as we were talking earlier with that example. If you've got a pain in the shoulder or the knee, you can check in and ask yourself, what thought or belief are you running that creates that pain in the body? What's going on in the energetic field that's creating this? You can do that. That's one option. Or you can simply put yourself back into alignment. It doesn't matter. If you keep repeating it and keep creating that discomfort, then we would say, yes, you might want to peek in there and see what's going on and work that way to say, all right, why am I creating this and how is it serving me? All right, and when you have that awareness, when you have that conscious awareness of how something serves you, you are in the heart center. So you're going about it in a slightly different way, but what you are eventually doing is putting yourself back in the heart center. See how that works?
So, how do we maintain to be heart centered?
Well, first off, you're not going to at the beginning. None of you are, because what happens is that as you increase your frequency, remember the laws of resonance and the laws of entrainment, those frequencies want to come up. All the lower energies want to come up to match the higher one, especially if it's a strong signal, a strong pulse that you're putting out. And what will happen is you will trigger that lower stuff. Any of that lower thought form, it'll start to vibrate in a stronger way, and it will get your attention. You'll move back into the mind, and you'll focus on it and create it. You'll project it and create it. So this is why you go in and out. This is why you can have things going really, really well, and all of a sudden you create a big incident. It's because you are resonating at a high frequency, and all that lower stuff needed to come up in order to maintain the high frequency. You had to clear it out. You're not paying attention, so you get the drama, you get that creation. It's important for you all not to look at your creations of the lower vibrations and say, what am I doing wrong? That's really important, because that's beratement. That's going to lower your frequency. Observe it. Simply see it and identify it as a vibrational choice. Oh, look, there's still more for me to clear. Anytime you create something that isn't of the highest vibrational nature, appreciate it as an opportunity to achieve a higher vibrational state. One, that's going to help you move out of it faster. And two, it is the true nature. It is why it's being projected and reflected in the first place, so that you can see it as an opportunity to integrate. You can use it that way. So don't beat yourself up to say, why do I keep doing this over and over? Part of the reason that you do it over and over also is because you may have a lot of energy or attachment to that issue, and to bring it all up at once would be far too intense. So you do it in levels and layers, and you only bring up as much as you are capable of processing in that moment. You never take on any more than you are possible of addressing. Anytime that you create, whether it's a problem or something that is what you would say a success, you create the opposite. You create both polarities. You create a problem and a solution at the same time. Most of the time what you all observe is the creation of the problem, and then you seek the solution. We say it's a bit like hide and seek. All right? And really you are hiding it in a different vibrational range. Remember what we were talking about earlier about being in 5D and being able to see down, but 3D not being able to see up. So what happens, you create the problem, we'll say that's a negative, and the solution is in a positive frequency. And when you look for it, what you're finding is the service of both. That's really what it is. You will experience this, which will neutralize both charges. You're experiencing it in the divine. So if you create a problem, and let us say that, give us an example. Is there something in your life that is a problem? Anyone?
No problems.
Excellent. We're done today. All right, so...
Sorry, family history.
All right, so let's say we'll use abandonment again. Actually, we want to use support. You're not feeling supported. We'll use support. So, let's say you've created a problem. And that problem is a back issue. All right, your back is killing you. But what you created was also an opportunity, at the same time you created the problem in the body, you also created an opportunity to bring in lots of other people. You went around and made contracts and said, all right, I would like to co-create and experience support. And somebody says, I would really like to learn how to be of support to somebody else. I don't want to be so self-centered. So you've gone and arranged some contracts up here, but down here, you're not in vibrational alignment with it just yet. So you've got to increase your frequency in order to pull those people in. But you've already orchestrated it for yourself energetically, vibrationally, karmically. Now who that is, you've set up a number of contracts depending on time, who wants to experience it. And if one doesn't work out in time, another will. So when you see the point of service, how creating the back pain is showing you that somehow you are ignoring your divine nature or suppressing your divine nature of support and allowing the universe to support you. What it allows you to do is increase your frequency so that you can have that more joyful experience. And you will start to encounter or find people in your life who are supportive to you. This also means that you've also got to look at this point of service for yourself. So if you're wanting and expecting service from others, that means that you must support yourself. You must do things that are good and supportive for you, and that is about making choices that are supporting your desires, your wishes. All right, but you always create both at the same time. Absolutely. Now, most of the time, if you have something that's a success, that feels really great, you also create the negative, but you're out of vibrational sync with it. You're up here, so this is what you're going to experience. You rarely see the negative. You don't need to, because you're resonating at a higher vibrational range. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I was trying to say? But the negative, you're not vibrating high enough, but you will eventually, as you increase, experience the positive. What can happen, occasionally, is that you can create a huge success, and then you have a lot of doubts about your worthiness. You'll drop out and you'll experience the negative. The lack of worth. You'll get that knock on the head. That happens occasionally. But more often than not, there's no need to experience the negative because you are aligning and staying aligned with the positive. Alright, so we think we're going to stop for just a moment and leave the exercise that we were going to get to after lunch, because you may be surprised at what comes up. We're going to talk about some fears. So take a nice breath. It's safe to be in my body. It's safe to be connected. You can breathe that in and out here for just a moment. And when we come back, we're going to talk a bit more about connection and fear and power, personal power. How would that be?
Sounds great.
All right. So we will see you in several hours.